Beep, 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 beep. Jester. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever the hell you are. Good afternoon, right? Become a warrior teacher. Yes, come on. We want you for August. We're going to start in. People are enrolling in the next week or so. So come on, get those apps in. Let's see ya. Buy me a coffee. Blah, blah, blah. Patreon. Subscribe to my channel. Share this if you will, because it's an update. To a certain degree, it's an update. It's just an update for you today. As you will be aware, I recently covered the case of Sarah Jane Baker, the bloke who called for people to slap a turf in the kisser. Right? Now, he didn't say that. He said something much more violent than that, because he strikes me as being an inherently violent man. But there's been some developments that are important, and I think updating you is probably a good thing on that front. Sarah Jane Baker. That's an interesting name, isn't it, for a man his age? Don't you think? Here's what I think, right? I think he's a fantasist, okay? First and foremost, because of what he is. He's just a fantasist. And secondly, I think Sarah Jane Baker is a reference to Tom Baker and Sarah Jane Smith from the 1970s era of Doctor Who, which held a particular affection for some men. So I think his name is about Doctor Who. Anybody else thought of that? Or is it just me that thinks that might be possible? LARPing, twerp. Right, so, as well as the fact that he stayed with Frida, didn't he? In Manchester, she put him up. He put him up, sorry. E.g., put him up, right? I'm not harbouring a criminal, it's just my friend, right? Fine, okay? I think you're harbouring a criminal, but that's, not just me either. Because what's happened is a couple of things that I think are very important. People were obviously outraged at that kind of incitement to violence, which is what it appeared to be to me, though I'm not a legal bod, had happened so blatantly in London at Trans Pride. And there they were on the stage, and they've come out now bleating. This was not an official speaker at Trans Pride, that we gave them the microphone and got them on the stage at any rate. Okay, right, not an official speaker. This Sarah Jane Baker wibbler has got form for this type of stuff, and still they let him on the stage. We do not support, nor do we condone. Those kind of anodyne statements that people make when they've been caught by the testiculae, and they're having to admit to the fact they've done something wrong, but they won't. See, admitting you're wrong's not a weakness, you bunch of wibblers. Admitting you're wrong's a strength. So here we go. It's, Cam, what was it Khan said? What did Khan say? I will chase him around the nebula. No, that's the wrong Khan. What did Khan say? He said, I am a supporter of the LGBTQI plus and these and bumps and daisy people. Violence is wrong. They're such disingenuous tossers, aren't they? Oh, God, just call it out for what it is. So thankfully, Suella Braverman, who incidentally did a brilliant speech on why the Equality Act doesn't fit with English law. If you haven't seen that, you should try and find it. Right? Very interesting. Has spoken about this. So what Suella tweeted, after the police have now said that they're going to investigate this Sarah Jane Baker LARPer, right? Suella Braverman has said, I'm glad the police have decided to investigate this incident at a Trans Pride event, having initially closed it with no further action. I'm sure the police will consider the evidence carefully. Now, people are moaning, the Home Secretary shouldn't interfere in matters of law. It's like, what? The Home Secretary is there to interfere in matters of law. And I'm glad that the Home Secretary has interfered in this particular matter of law, because when you examine what it is that they actually said when they first had reports that this person was, nuts and calling for violence on stage, it really does bring the whole thing into stark relief how much the Met Police have gone off the rails in terms of this trans nonsense. So it's interesting to notice that Sex Matters, who you'd be very familiar with, have a letter that was composed by Helen Joyce and Maya Forstata, which is very much worth listening to, and the links are in the doobries as usual. So here we go to the marvellous Helen and Maya. Thank you for this letter. I'm sure there are many who would like to thank you as well, and do. To Sir Mark Riley, QPM, Commissioner of the Police of the Metropolis. That isn't that what sounds like something about a Batman. Get the bat signal going, come on! Metropolitan Police, New Scotland Yard, Victorian Embankment, London, SW1A 2JL. Dear Sir Mark, I never understood the word Mark. Who names their child after a smudge on a table? Anyway, dear Sir Mark, on Saturday at Trans Pride in London, a speaker incited a cheering crowd to violence against women and girls. If you see a TERF, punch them in the effing face. Attached are a briefing on the facts of the case, a background note on the speaker, Sarah Jane Baker, and a response from the acting sergeant of the Metropolitan Police to a complaint made by a member of the public. We wish to raise serious concerns. Baker is a violent, convicted male and criminal subject to licence conditions from his most recent custodial sentence. The evidence suggests that his public advocacy for violence presents a clear risk to women and girls. We are deeply concerned that his offending is escalating, and it appears that the Metropolitan Police is not dealing adequately with it. As our briefing makes clear, the offender has engaged in notional protest activities since release, all of which feature alarming indications of heightened risk. These include, but are not limited to, indecent exposure and an unlawful use of an amplified public address system in Hyde Park to disrupt a feminist event. In neither instance did the police act. This offender has now escalated to encouraging criminal offences while addressing a crowd. The only possible interpretation is that a man with a well-evidenced history of extreme violence has been emboldened by official inaction. The Metropolitan Police's Violence Against Women and Girls Action Plan states, why is that upside down? States that working with partners, we aim to reassure women. I'm not sure this does that, not the letter, the actions of the Metropolitan Police. We aim to reassure women and girls across London and protect them from victimisation. We want to bear down on perpetrators and address behaviours and actions which target and harm women. Well, in my mind, there's no clear example of it right now, other than this, what he did at Trans Pride. That aim is difficult to reconcile, Maya and Helen continue, with the response we append from Acting Police Sergeant Warner and his remarks regarding freedom of speech. Sergeant Warner selects and dismisses the minor charge of using threatening or abusive words or behaviour, Section 5 POA 1986. No consideration appears to be given to more serious offences involving public disorder or the Section 44 SCA 2007 variants thereof. These are acts of Parliament under which this individual could be seen to have broken the law, deemed to have broken the law, and should therefore be placed before a judge and at the very least the panel of probation officers who have given him his freedom, which he has then so cruelly used in the indulgence of the public, who've said, okay, you know, you seem to be okay now. He's not, is he? Something's wrong. So he needs to be recalled back to prison, I think. So this Sergeant Warner dismissed them, and we find that surprising, says Helen and Maya. Punching a TERF, i.e. a woman with gender-critical beliefs, in the face would be a serious offence, but Sergeant Warner says only this. The female, Baker, is suggesting, inciting, members of the crowd to punch individuals who act on this TERF belief. This is not targeted at an individual, this is a hypothetical situation. The acting sergeant seems to suggest that the incitement to violence was justified on the basis that someone might act on their beliefs, or by the wider context of the crowd attending for the purpose of expressing their support for LGBTQ+ members. The acting sergeant describes the offender as the female and uses the slur TERF without further comment. Baker is a violent male who claims to have severed his own testicles and eaten them. The police code of conduct calls on officers to act with honesty and integrity at all times. The oath of office requires political impartiality. Referring to a violent male convicted criminal as female strongly suggests partiality and bias, meaning there a belief in the gender identity ideology Cracker's belief system. We invite you to apologise for this inadequate response, to reopen the investigation and meet with us and other gender-critical women in order to further and deepen your understanding of the frequent and often unpoliced threats of violence women faced by women speaking out on this issue. We wish to be quite clear. We regard the events today as evidence of a clear pattern of rising risk in Baker's case, and we request that you attend to your duty to protect women and girls from open and disgraceful cause of violence. I am sure that Meyer and Helen there speak for many of us when we say that this kind of behaviour is unacceptable and goes beyond the bounds of what is seen as free speech and into the arena of incitement to violence. Imagine just changing it from turf to anything else you fancy, and you can see how that may well work. Since this point, the Metropolitan Police have said they have reopened the investigation. I don't even know if this bloke's still at large, but you'd think the fact they've got a video which they can watch in 2 minutes means that 7 minutes later they'd be at his front door. Let's see whether or not the Metropolitan Police do their job. It is now apparent to me that the police and right across the board universities, that we know this, they're all completely captured by this madness. And we have a government that seems absolutely inert on this, with the exception of Suella Braverman, who had the courage to say, we're going to do something about this. Where's Sunak? Where are the Conservatives? Where are they? We need to start a real purge of our organisations from these lunatic ideas, and that will have to be done for the top. It isn't going to change organically, guys. It isn't. And the same goes for organisations in the private sector, who will need to focus very clearly on making money as we move forward, as the economic times get tougher. Okay, so, I'll put the links in the dupers as usual so you can see exactly what it is that I was reading from there, but I think it's a very good letter. And I shall look forward to more news on this, as I'm sure will you. Thanks for watching. Have a grand day. I'll see you later. Bye.